Welcome to the Vegas Law Podcast, hosted by renowned Las Vegas attorney Tony Sgro of the law firm Sgro & Roger. Each episode explores legal insights and local stories that matter to you. Now on with the show.
Welcome to the Vegas Law Podcast. My name is Tony Sgro. I'm the host of the show, along with Darrell Harris, my co-host. Thanks for joining us today.
How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm 10 pounds heavier because of Thanksgiving weekend. Other than that,
well,
I'm solid.
You actually had a very busy month, but you were in Italy for a bit.
I was indeed. Spent a couple weeks there, caught up with some family time and some law firm in Italy time, and all is good. Glad to be there, but it's always nice to be home.
Yeah, it seems like you're always busy. I know we kind of have a similar schedule in different ways. Very busy all the time. But one of the things we want to talk about, we were actually just kind of going over that a few days ago, was the uniqueness of practicing law in Nevada, but specifically Las Vegas, because a lot of people have misconceptions of Vegas, misconceptions of what the laws are in Nevada. Let's talk about that.
Sure. In Las Vegas, we have been forever perceived as the town where, anything goes. And what happens here stays here. And what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. All those great things. And so there's this feeling when people come in from out of town that it's basically, adult Disneyland and they can do whatever they want to do. And unfortunately, it's not quite that way. So you can definitely take advantage of certain things in Las Vegas that you can't do anywhere else in the world. We have 24-hour everything, strip clubs, gambling, night clubbing, et cetera, et cetera. And the list goes on and on. You can get a cocktail at 2 in the morning, at noon, or at 7 p.m. And relative to the entertainment side of things, it really is an all-access kind of a place where people get a little bit, confused or unsettled is when they figure out that there are actually certain things you can't do. So in my world, we deal with many, many tourists who come here and, for example, never knew that prostitution was not legal in Clark County. And yes, the casinos are located within Clark County. And there are undercover police officers, men and women, who frequent the hotels in order to have conversations with unsuspecting tourists who will later get sometimes arrested for soliciting for purposes of prostitution, which if you're outsider looking in, you think to yourself, well, that's crazy. Now, in fairness, Nevada has brothels all over the place.
I was going to say, so actually in parts of Nevada, prostitution is legal, but
very
it's very controlled, specific areas, right?
100%. So you can go from Las Vegas to a town called Pahrump, for example. It's about 45 minutes to an hour drive. There they actually have a legitimate house of prostitution. And you walk in, they give you a menu of what sort of service you'd like. It's got a fixed price. And you choose who you want to engage in that service with, and then you get the privacy of a room, and off you go.
So it's consenting adults doing illegal activity,
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Well, it's legal in Pahrump, for example.
Right.
Outside of Reno, there are brothels, et cetera. So that is one area of practice where people sometimes get confused. Not confused, but they have one very different impression, and the reality is quite another.
Yeah, it's what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
For sure.
Which actually covers, and we were talking about some other things too, about even things like narcotics and a whole host of other things. Kind of talk about that, because I know you've dealt with some of those cases.
Sure. So in Las Vegas, there are very robust nightclubs, and we have out here what they call the day club. And the day club is a nightclub in the daytime, and so you have it at the pool, for example, when the weather's permitting. And you have thousands of people flocking into these pool areas in every hotel in town. And they have DJs and they have food and they have cocktails, et cetera, et cetera. And it is shocking how many people get arrested at the door because they are bringing in varying levels of narcotics. Now, do sometimes people get away with a warning, for lack of a better term, or throw that out and I'll let you in? Sure. But the amount of stuff that's attempted to be snuck into a club is crazy. So people, for example, with satchels full of, pick the drug. Obviously, if you're going in there with a satchel full of narcotics, whatever they are, you are likely going to be trying to sell those items while you're in the club. And it could be anything from Adderall, if you're at the day club, all the way to more serious things like, cocaine, et cetera. At nighttime, there is a problem in Las Vegas with fentanyl. Over the last few years, we have had more deaths related to fentanyl.
Actually, obviously, national issue.
Yeah, well, we got particularly hit hard with that. And so prosecutors, judges, et cetera, that live here in this community really take a hard line, a harsh stance towards that particular degree of narcotics. So Las Vegas rolls out the red carpet. I'm hard-pressed to think of another city that has so much to offer entertainment-wise with the high degree of service that we have. And honestly, when you live here, you get spoiled. It's hard to travel somewhere else because here you have things at your beck and call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's nice to have that as a consistent amenity. I would look at it this way. If you come to Las Vegas and you just abide by a couple of rules, you're going to have a wonderful time. If you come to Las Vegas with an eye towards, well, it's easy to pick somebody's pocket in a large crowd. It's easy to bring in more than one dose of narcotics and try to sell it while I'm inside the club. Another problem that we have here is people that show up blind drunk and try to get into the club. Right. And so they get told, hey, you can't come in. You've already been overserved or self-imposed intoxication. Go sober up. You're welcome to come back. And there are fights at the door, which is crazy. You would never do that anywhere else. But for some reason,
they just assume anything goes in Vegas.
Right. They just assume if you can stand up and ambulate and have the wherewithal to show someone an ID and you're over 21, you get to get into the club. It's not quite that simple. I've actually even had doctors this is crazy, but this has happened, doctors that come in with prescription medication that walk around the club trying to sell individual doses of Valtrex, for example, which is the drug or the medication used to treat genital herpes. And here you got doctors that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Well, why would they risk their medical license?
Because
they make a lot of money.
They're making a lot of money selling 2, 3, 4 pills at a time as they're walking around a nightclub. You can imagine if you're walking in with a couple hundred pills, which will fit in your pants pocket. Right. You can make a lot of money, and so it goes. So we do have a lot of unique crimes that occur because I think of the mindset of those that come to visit us. Not everyone, obviously, but they're the select few, right? The vocal minority sometimes has the potential of giving Las Vegas a black eye. It's not like Utah where you go on vacation and leave on probation, but it is, they are guarded. Why are they so guarded? Because that gaming license, the license that allows hotels to exist, to, receive and procure funds based on betting that happens, that is a highly regulated, highly guarded, privileged license. And so you can appreciate that hotels that make tens of millions of dollars a year, they are not going to care if they lose the business from someone that was going to spend $50 on a few cocktails once they got into the pool.
And something we also, kind of related to that, being drunk, belligerent, whatever, gamblers that go to the table, they're drunk, they lose all their money. Then later they try to sue the casino saying that they weren't basically competent. I know you've probably dealt with some of those. Talk a little bit on that topic.
I have. I was just telling a story to a friend of mine about a gaming case because a client literally came in this morning with a problem. And so when you come to Las Vegas and you gamble, one of the things that is available to certain individuals is a credit line. It's no different than a credit card you'd get at any department store, except instead of buying, clothing at Nordstrom's, you're buying the ability to play with chips that the hotel gives you on the blackjack table, the crap table, whatever you're doing. And those credit lines can be a couple $1,000s, and they could be for certain individuals tens of millions of dollars. And so you come in and you play on this credit line, and that is something that is unique to us and the offenses that can stem from that. So when you get a credit line in a casino in Las Vegas, what they have you do when you're ready to receive some money on your line is they have you sign a check. That check is called a marker. And when you sign your check, and let's say you sign a check for $5,000, you're signing it, pay to the order of whatever, the Bellagio, the Wynn Hotel, whatever it is, and you get your $5,000. Now, you come and go, your vacation's over, you go home Sunday night. Well, the hotel on Monday morning deposits that check. Invariably, the person that signed the check does not have enough money to cover the check. That happens a lot. And so the hotels, because of the hotel gambling business and the synergy that exists between them and our district attorney's office, they have what's called a bad check unit. In Las Vegas, in Nevada, if you sign a check that you know you can't pay, it's a felony. So now what happened is, in my example, you went to a hotel, you signed off on a credit line, and they deposited your check, and you don't have enough money, now you've committed a felony. And so the hotel will reach out and say, hey, listen, you need to pay this money back, you need to do this and that. And they'll give you sometimes even time to pay.
They basically want their money. They're not looking to charge people unless they absolutely have to.
Correct. They want their money. Sometimes the hotel will even give you a discount if you pay them the money. And there's going to come a time, though, when if you don't pay, if you make no effort to pay, if you don't even make a payment, they will, at some point, submit your bad check or your bad marker to the district attorney's office. Then the district attorney will send you a notice and say, listen, you went to the Bellagio 2 months ago, 3 months ago. You signed this marker. They tried to cash it. They were unsuccessful. Pay them, or within 30 days, we're going to charge you. So they do give you multiple opportunities.
We're just using Bellagio as an example.
Just as an example, sure. Could be
just
any
said with love. Okay.
Yeah, any hotel on the any hotel on the Strip does
Exactly.
the same thing.
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, one could argue, look, if someone's getting charged with a bad check case because of a gambling issue, they gotta kind of look in the mirror, right? Because they signed the marker, they knew what they were doing, and now they just don't want to pay. Now, there's a parenthesis to that, and it's what you brought up. Well, what happens if you're really drunk? That has been an issue that has been litigated since the beginning of a marker.
And
right?
has been happening since the beginning of gambling.
Since the beginning, right? Because what do they do?
Way back when.
Sure. What do? The casinos want you a little bit loose. They want you a little bit buzzed or intoxicated, whatever your word of choice is. And it is in that moment that you think to yourself, okay, I can do another $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, whatever it is. And then you blink, you've been drunk and awake for 24 straight hours. And now all of a sudden what you thought was going to be, let's say, a $10,000 weekend or a $50,000 weekend turns into a $250,000 weekend.
Right.
And that happens.
Yep.
And I was just telling someone, this is a true story. I had a client, he's from Southern California. He owned retail mall shopping centers. He owned the buildings, and then he would lease them out to, the tenants inside. So grocery stores, auto shops, etc.
Successful guy.
Successful guy, wildly successful guy. And so he comes out for a weekend, and he spends the weekend at a very well-known resort property. And his credit line was $500,000. He got here, took out the credit line, he lost. He, while in a drunken stupor, which the videotapes would reveal, because they record everything here, everything is 24/7 video surveillance. They record him, and you can see that he is sort of stumbling and having a difficult time finding where does he sign. And one of the markers took him a couple tries to sign his name. So everyone could look at this videotape and agree that he was really drunk.
He was impaired.
Right. Well, over 3 days worth of time, he lost $3.2 million. And he calls me up after obviously, realizing what he had just done. And again, some would say, listen, man, you went in there, you knew enough to know what you were doing. Shame on you, but pay the money. And I understand that. But at the same time, because we are an industry, a city that relies on people coming into our town and patronizing our city, we can't take any hits for trying to, pull one over on someone, et
right,
cetera.
Especially guys that probably have in the past gambled a lot of money at the same casinos.
No doubt
It's not
about
a great
it.
public relations look to be charging.
100%. This was a guy who was a sort of gambler where, the private jet goes out to pick him up at LAX or just outside LAX. He gets on the private plane. They got a suite waiting for him. He gets taken home on the private plane, just like, the movies. Well, he called me and he said, I don't think this is right. And this has never happened to me before. So I've negotiated a lot of those sorts of cases where there's an issue, whether they knowingly and intelligently signed the document that increased their credit line while they were here during their visit. And so what happens is I send a letter to this hotel and I say, listen, he's really drunk. You guys have the videotapes. His line was $500,000. He's happy to pay that. But this $3.2 million is crazy. It's more than 6 times what you guys had previously approved him to do. He's not going to be able to do that. So they send me a letter back from the lawyer, and the letter back says, listen, not only is he paying us the $3.2 million, but enclosed, please find some video stills of your client gambling with a woman we know not to be his wife. And if he does not pay and this thing goes public, I don't know. I think this is relevant. So I got that. And fortunately, my client let me do my thing, because sometimes in those circumstances, clients, especially at his station in life, would be the sort to say, you know what, forget it, just pay the money. So what I did is I took that information and I went to 60 Minutes. And I said, hey, listen, man, this is borderline extortion.
I was going to say, it's sort of a shakedown. Right?
And not surprisingly, I ended up settling that case for about $650,000, and everyone went their own way. Now, that's never happened to me before. I'd never seen an actual lawyer author a letter like that. I think it was in really poor taste, but it's happened. Most of the time, when people come in and gamble at that level, they get perks. One of those perks, of course, is the free dinner and the free room. But more importantly to the high roller, the whale, the big gambler, are the discounts. And so what some people don't realize is the more your credit line is, the more you spend at the tables, the deeper the discount you can negotiate. And so you can imagine if someone has $1 million line of credit and they lose and they get a 20% discount, it's still a lot of money.
A discount off the loss?
A discount off the loss.
Okay.
So you get to keep all your wins,
right?
But you get to take a discount on your losses. And so imagine, the scenario where the gambler comes in and just takes money out of their pockets as they want to replenish as they lose. Well, they are paying more to gamble on their losses than they would if they had a credit line. All of this, is designed to feed into this system where the person comes, uses the credit line, pays the bill, and if they don't, there's all these crazy consequences. So it goes from that level of offenses which clearly are unique to communities like Las Vegas when we have live gambling that's illegal or that's legal, versus the more modest efforts to cheat the system, and those are things like
card counters.
Well,
That's actually not technically not.
Card
We'll talk
counting?
about that a little
Yeah.
bit because I have friends that actually had done that for very successful. And in Vegas, there's a funny, murky area with card counting.
So card counting is not, in and of itself, illegal. You can't get arrested for card counting because, if you have
And it's usually related to blackjack.
So if you have the knowledge, skill, and experience to be able to calculate when your advantage is on whatever your hand is coming up, then God bless you. You have that skill, and everyone can learn that skill. Some choose to learn it, and some enhance their chances of winning at a blackjack table. What they will do, they can't arrest you, but what they will do is uninvite you from coming to the hotel anymore and playing blackjack. So they can say, you can't play anymore. They can say, we don't want you in our hotel anymore, which is more aggressive. But that's about all they can do. So card counting is now seen as a tactical advantage that any player can deduce on their own. No different than if you're playing poker and if you're playing Hold'em poker and you have two cards that are diamonds in your hand, and on the first three cards that flip over, two more diamonds show up, and if you get a fifth diamond, you have a flush, which is a great hand. What is the mathematical probability of getting another diamond? Well, some people may know that, some people may not. What if someone raises? Do you raise? Do you not? It's all math. And the courts around the country have been clear, and they say things like, listen, if poker is all luck, then why do the same people keep winning the World Series of Poker?
Exactly.
Right? Poker is a game of skill. Well, what is the skill? Math. You got
knowing the odds,
That's
exactly,
right.
yeah. And it's funny too because I actually, when I first moved to Las Vegas, I had a friend of mine that was a professional card counter. But back then, blackjack was typically, I think, 3 decks, 2 decks. Now it's different.
Right.
Now it's quite a few decks, and it's much more difficult to do, right?
Well, not only is it more decks. So the card counting really exploded here 20, 25 years ago, and they were at between 5 and 6 decks. And if you were a proficient card counter, you could hang with 5 or 6 decks. But what you would do is the 5 or 6 decks would all get used, right, until they got to a point where they didn't have enough cards left in what's called a shoe anymore. And then they would take all the cards out, reshuffle them, and start all over again.
Restarts the odds, restarts the...
Well, if you look at some of the properties now on the Strip, the machines that they use now are continuously shuffling, which means if the dealer deals a hand of blackjack and the dealer uses 25 cards in that hand with 6 players and everyone's hitting, staying, whatever they're doing, they take all those cards, they feed them right back into the shoe. And the shoe, the machine now automatically shuffles those cards right back into the mix. So there's a theoretical possibility that the king of clubs that you got on the hand you just played is going to get spit back at you in the very next hand. That is all done by design to thwart the effort of a card counter. Now, there are hotels that will take the risk on the player and still say, hey, the house has the advantage, and they don't use those continuous shuffle machines. They will do sometimes 2 decks, sometimes 5, and they'll use the old conventional shoe. But those are disappearing slowly more and more over time. And they're going to the more, you got to be lucky, because if you got to be lucky, then the house always has a baked-in advantage. Although blackjack has the greatest odds for any player, when you take away the math abilities and you make everyone equal in that regard, the house gets a little bit better of an advantage. But having said that, what's the crime, in Vegas now is the credit line thing, the bad checks. And the other thing that people do is, everything is so hyper-focused video-wise inside the casino And we have had cases, more than one, where someone gets a blackjack, let's just say, and they try to create a distraction. Of course, a videotape can't be distracted, right? A camera on your bet isn't getting distracted. But they think that by creating a distraction for the dealer or who's ever there in the proximity of the player, that, while they create the distraction, then they or their friend put more money on the bet.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that happens.
Sleight of hand, kind of.
Yeah, that happens with a high degree of regularity. So what do? They freeze the hand. They look at the computer, and the computer has the ability to, the chips have a little magnetic component in the middle of every hotel chip. And that's so that you can't counterfeit them, et cetera, et cetera. But also it helps the computer, that's the eye in the sky, as it's called, look and see how many chips you had. So let's say someone's playing $25 chips, and they had 4 chips on there, and when the dealer saw that they had a blackjack, now all of a sudden they have 8, the video reveals that.
Yeah, and AI is coming into play with that too, right?
Right, and so it's becoming more and more difficult to get away with something like that, and then once that happens, you're done. They call Gaming Control Board, and they're going to effect an arrest, especially if the bet amount is a lot. The other thing that people try to do is when they have a bad hand and they want to fold or not fold, but they bust it in 21, whatever it is. When they bust, they flip the cards over as if to say, I busted, or sometimes out of frustration because they lost. And then on the way back, they try to take chips off their bet. So it's both directions.
Right.
And we've had cases where people are betting, and they do it's by design. Let's say they're betting $1,500 a hand. There is a $1,000 chip. There's a $500 chip in Las Vegas. But they don't do that. They take $1,500 chips, which are typically black, harder for people to see exactly how many. And so they put up 15 chips instead of 2. And then if they lose on the way back from losing the hand after they have flipped their cards over, they try and grab 2 or 3 chips off their bet. That happens as well. And so what the hotels will do is they'll catch it. They'll let it occur a few times so that the amount of money increases that they defrauded the hotel over. Then they call Gaming Control, and Gaming Control Board is 24/7. Then all of a sudden an agent is sitting there at your blackjack table and, hey, come with me. We have a few questions for you. And there you go. Right. And then
so what used to happen back in the good old days?
Yeah,
when they did that, because actually going way back, Bugsy Siegel, all those guys, they really, like, when they first established like the Flamingo and those casinos, they had to figure out the surveillance thing too and figure out how to deal with all that because of course they were dealing with it. Is that where that kind of the beginnings of that whole Gaming Control Board? Is that where that started?
Sure, and there's no doubt about it. Back in the early days, it was human beings with binoculars looking up, from the ceiling, looking down, looking down at the blackjack table to try to detect cheating. Today, one video camera can replace many, many individuals, and the accuracy, by the way, is unbelievable. So, we joke about like the video cameras inside of a Walmart can read a text off your cell phone when you're walking through the store. It can read the serial number off a dollar bill. The video surveillance capabilities in a casino are no different. And so over time, as technology increases and they do things inside the chips themselves that prevent them from being replicated, that prevent them, even when you go cash out, what they'll do now is they'll say, hey, Joe Blow is here. They have a $1,000 chip, or they have a $10,000 in aggregate chips. They said they were playing blackjack. Is that true? Did they win? Can I give them the money? So it's not like the olden days where it's much more like the Wild West. You could get away with stuff.
Or not.
Or not, and just...
Or bad things might happen.
Yeah, just catch a friendly beating in the back.
Exactly.
But obviously those days are over too. However, people's effort is pretty remarkable. When I first started, they had an unending ring of what they called slot cheats. And if you remember in Las Vegas, 30, 40 years ago, they had slot machines that were coin operated. A 25-cent machine means you literally got a roll of quarters and you fed the quarters in one by one by one. And if you won a jackpot, the quarters would then get spit out.
The money's dropping and it's
the money's dropping
and
it's in the it's in the little tray at the bottom of the machine. And when you were ready to cash out, you went and got a little bucket. You dumped all the quarters in the bucket, and then you went to the cage, and you cashed out. Right? I saw my grandma do that 1,000 times.
Me too.
And so what people did is they came up with devices. So the reels on a slot machine, now they're all computerized. Why? Well, they had to do something because the wheels used to be magnetic. So what did people do? They built magnets that they figured out how to disable the magnet inside the machine. And so they'd pull the handle, and then they'd be able to jockey the handle because the spin on the wheel wouldn't be a flow-through circle. It would be all messed up, and then they could manipulate the 3 individual wheels on the machine to line up to be a jackpot. So that used to be a crime. We saw that all the time.
Well, it's still a crime, except the mechanical machines don't exist.
Well, yeah, you can't do that. It was opportunistic then.
Right.
It doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
The other thing that people did all the time was they had devices as simple as a hanger with a string, and they'd put a quarter on it, and they would figure out by sensitivity when the machine would register a credit. So they would take this hanger with this 1 quarter on it and keep dropping it in and out of the slot that registered the credits, and they would get 1 million credits, play for a little bit, then cash out, right? You can't do that anymore because no machines take any coins. So there's been very much a call and response, and, it is hard to keep up with technology in the gaming sector in particular if you want to continue to try to commit gaming offenses, right? So it changes. So that's why we see things as simple now as adding chips to the bet, taking chips away, doing the phony credit line.
They'll always try to find a way to.
They're always going to try and find a way, but the mechanics of it have been increasingly difficult. And the cases that I saw when I was a very young lawyer, they're just now history lessons. They don't even exist anymore because they're just antiquated and outdated, and you can't do the thing anymore because it just doesn't exist that way.
Well, and on that topic, because of the proliferation of Indian gaming around the country, are those casinos, the people that are running those casinos, are they called attorneys in Nevada and Las Vegas as consultants? Has that been something that's happened? I'm sure they obviously have their own attorneys as well. But
yeah, there's no doubt that Las Vegas and Nevada, it's the gaming capital of the planet. And so what they do and what they've done and developed over, the last 50 years is the most desirable gaming license that can be had is the one that exists in Las Vegas, right? And if you have that license, you can get a license pretty much anywhere else in the world. However, to keep that license, that means if you open up an establishment on an Indian reservation, in Macau, on a boat, in St. Louis, whatever it is, if you're not compliant with the Nevada rules, even though in Vietnam or Thailand or wherever you're at, even though those rules you're okay with, if you're doing something in those other outlying jurisdictions, you will never get approved for a Las Vegas gaming license. So they have a pretty good stronghold on gaming, even in foreign countries, which is kind of unheard of, right? That a single state within the United States has that kind of stranglehold on communities all over the world. And it's because most of the folks that are developing gaming properties and involved in gaming, if they are high-stakes operations, robust hotels, the knowledge and ingenuity typically comes from folks that live in Las Vegas. So if you own the Mandalay Bay and you want to go open up a Mandalay Bay in a different country, well, you can do that and you can comply with that country's rules. If you do that, though, your license here in Las Vegas is going to get revoked. And so what do? You have to comply with the Gaming Control Board rules in Las Vegas in order to keep the Golden Goose, which is the hotel that you have here.
Right, and because it's always been that, most of those casinos either started here or Atlantic City and then expanded. I know, like Macau, which I've been to, they have the Venetian, they have a lot. MGM has a hotel there. But that's interesting, though, with the license. And, of course, as you mentioned, that license is just, they'll do pretty much anything to protect their license.
That's right.
It's so valuable. Tony, tell people how they can contact us and find the podcast and all that. And we're going to get into this topic again in other episodes because it's sort of endless.
Yeah.
But tell people how they could find the podcast.
Sure. So you can contact us at sgroandroger.com, SGROANDROGER.com. And you can find us
on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean. There's just a long list, but basically anywhere that you can find any that's a major podcast outlet. And we're really proud to be working with those outlets. And we're currently on the charts at Apple Podcasts, which is very exciting because we're still a new show. I think this is our third episode, with lots more to come.
Indeed.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Please like and subscribe and to be able to find future episodes. So we appreciate you listening.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit our website at sgroandroger.com. Please like and subscribe.